This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Welcome to this episode of Real Talk, just hours before the French language debate and about a day and a half-ish, depending on when you're listening to this, I guess, before the English language debate that could change the course of this election. Or maybe not. We're going to be talking to Mickey Djuric from Politico in just a quick second about this. Shauna Feth joining us as well, President and CEO of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. We've got two different takes on the federal election, plus your live comments, your emails. We've got a lot going on today. But, John, before we go any further, I promised a Real Talker that I would do this out of the gates today. Good morning. It's good to see you, my friend. Chipper, bouncing, ready to go. Are you the French language debate? I can't imagine you get up for anything quite as much as the French language debate here during the election.
I tell you, Ryan, I train all year for this.
You've been working on your French.
Yeah, I contact my French immersion kids that I did about 3 months in French immersion back in like grade 4.
Did you really?
Yeah, we moved and we looked at a school and I went there for a few months. But anyways, other than asking where the bathroom is in French, est-ce que je peux aller aux toilettes, s'il vous plaît? I don't understand much, but I imagine we're going to be watching the captions. But I got my popcorn already because I know Carney took a couple days off here, it looks like, to prepare for this. You know, his French isn't as polished as Poilievre's.
Sure.
But also, the main thing, I'll get back to you, we'll start the show, but the main thing I'm looking for...
This is the start, pal.
...is two things. One, can Carney remain calm? We know he's got the quick, eloquent, intelligent answers about economy and policy, etc. He can beat Poilievre on that. But what Poilievre can do better than anyone is rattle you. So the main sentence I want to push for this, for Carney especially, because we know Poilievre's ready. He's got the bombs. He speaks French incredibly. Grace under pressure. Carney, just keep cool, man.
Does he? I don't. All the stuff. We'll ask Mickey about this, but all the stuff about like Carney's French isn't that good. I don't know that anybody cares that much about it. There's a Montreal Canadiens angle on this. We'll get into that with Mickey. But
man.
Nick Suzuki was going through this, the captain of the Montreal Canadiens, not a native French speaker, and everybody was wondering in Quebec and in particular Montreal, is he an appropriate choice?
Sure.
To wear the C for the Montreal Canadiens because he doesn't speak impeccable French. But I remember hearing that when Saku Koivu, the great Finn, was the captain of the Montreal Canadiens, one of their great all-time captains, and that's saying something. The guy comes back from cancer. The crowd loves him. But he worked on his French over the years to get to a proficient level. You don't have to be super duper smooth.
No,
and I don't think that Canadians expect, I mean, you look at Jean Chrétien's English, how was it? Not the greatest, but he was very capable.
Sure.
So tonight, I think as long as Carney can keep up, he'll be okay on it. But you're right about Poilievre pressing the buttons. The question is Poilievre rattled heading into this?
Sure.
I think he's probably had the debate circled on his calendar for like
100%.
2 months.
And anyone who thinks this is just, they sit down with their staffers and go over a few questions. Nowadays, debating, you know what they do behind the scenes, Ryan? We talk to people behind the scenes. They literally get professionals to try to rattle them, and then they look at video. It must be so embarrassing watching video of yourself and being like, look at your body language here, this is not good, change that. But it also gives them a kind of a step ahead because they can think more and listen more about the question if you're prepared and know how to prep your body language and how to respond to things. But that'll be the one thing I'm looking for is can Carney stay cool while Poilievre does his spiel, his dance, his bomb throwing? And also, does Poilievre have some policy and stuff like that? Because he knows that Carney knows he's I'm not going to say he's smarter, but we know he's got the better resume. He knows more about the economy. He knows more about numbers, and he can quickly, reference that stuff. Can Poilievre do that too?
Yeah, and there's a million things we can get into. Has Poilievre's team and his advisors in training him for the debate said lay off the snarkiness a little bit?
Maybe a little.
If you see a chance, like when these fighters train for these matches, right? These big boxing matches, and it's like you don't want to go out and like throw haymakers all the time.
Sure.
You leave yourself vulnerable. But when you see the shot, take it. Jillian's in our live chat, powered by Park Power, happen to know. We're not creeps and don't know absolutely everything about every audience member, but because Jillian is a regular commenter and has volunteered this information before, we do know that she hails from Montreal, calling Alberta home right now. So this is kind of an interesting perspective from Jillian, who says Poilievre's biggest problem is Quebecers can spot a phony a mile away, and Poilievre is thoroughly full of it, she says. And by the way, his French is better than Carney's, but not super either. That from Jillian for what it's worth. I wonder if the Anglophones in Canada may watch the French language debate tonight on mute, right? Watch the body language, and then watch the English debate the night after, and vice versa for the Francophones. Maybe you end up, because I think for a lot of people, and I love hearing how folks do this, but body language is so massive in these types of things. I think of like Richard Nixon sweating, and so you kind of wonder what Canadians will be looking for out of these two debates.
And we know, like, this is like a playoff round, and you have to watch game one, whether it's French or not, right? Game one kind of sets the vibe for game two, right? But we've seen this, and I don't mean to go to the Americans, but we've seen how one answer or one stumble can change the course of literally your career. Look at Joe Biden when he answered that question and said, the COVID, blah, blah. Literally, that was one of the instances, I would say the instance that led to him being replaced, right?
Yeah. Speaking of Biden, I'll let Real Talkers know. We got a lot coming up this episode. We've got Mickey and Shauna. We've got MyJasper Memories, some really cool openings happening. We got to talk playoffs this weekend. We'll talk a little bit of playoffs, but also
only in Canada did they change a debate time because of hockey.
So great. Right? Donald Trump talking about the cognitive test that he took. We got a lot of ground to cover. But I promised an individual yesterday, so I'm walking downtown, ladies and gentlemen, among the ivory towers of Edmonton's city center. Let me set the scene here. And I walk into a tower, and this tower is chock full of law firms. I'm not sure if this individual was a lawyer, but I couldn't help but notice this sharp-dressed fella, hair perfectly coiffed. John, his presentation so on point, wearing a dark navy three-piece suit with all of the accoutrements, the vest perfectly buttoned, the jacket open.
What's this, Dr. Phil? Who is this?
The pocket square perfectly placed. And as I'm walking past this individual, almost feeling self-conscious, this is my way of indicating or telling you all that I spent some time at the gym yesterday. But I was walking past in a hoodie, hat pulled down low, jeans, and all of a sudden I hear, Jespo. And I look up and I go, oh my gosh. And it is the sharp-dressed fella. And it's like, this is one of those moments where you're like, you're outdressed like a total scrub at the grocery store, and you hope you don't run into anybody that knows you. I was a schlub at least. And so I look up and I say, what's up, man? And he says, hey, I've been loving the show lately. I said, thank you very much. He goes, I listen all the time. I say, thanks. What's your name? He says, Aldo. I said, of course it is. The name fits. The guy's just on point, right? Everybody around him was admiring his sense of fashion.
I'd immediately look at his shoes. That's just what I think of when I hear Aldo.
You would think, but I don't think he gets his shoes there. I think he bumped
Probably
a budget.
not.
I think he bumped a budget level up on that. But he says, and he gets this kind of smirk. We talked for like 30 seconds. He gets kind of a smirk on his face. He says, do you do the thing where you like say hi to people on the show? I said, buddy, for you, absolutely.
Of course we did.
So shout out to Aldo, the sharpest dressed fella in downtown Edmonton, the provincial capital of Alberta yesterday, just nailing it. And to Real Talkers everywhere that make time for this show, we appreciate you. We're going to make it worth your while this episode, starting with Mickey Djuric, live from Quebec in just a quick second. First, want to let you know this episode is happening. Let's say it wouldn't be happening without the support of Business Career College. How about that? Leaders in online financial training since 1997. And keeping up with the times, to say the least. Polling shows that the next gen of investors, Gen Z, even millennials, 3/4 of them, really intrigued by decentralized finance. It's driving fundamental changes in the financial landscape for sure. Crypto assets being adopted by the mass market, integrated into the broader financial ecosystem. So if you're a financial planner, if you're helping folks plot their own course as an advisor or leading a team that is, you need to know what's going on here. That's why Business Career College has rolled out their CDAA designation. That's the Certified Digital Asset Advisor. A perfect way for you to absolutely understand and be able to advise around what's going on in decentralized finance. You'll start by learning more about Bitcoin and blockchain, and then go on from there. Future-proof your career. Offer more to your clients by checking out businesscareercollege.com and signing up for the CDAA, the Certified Digital Asset Advisor. The promo code Ryan20, all one word, Ryan20, will knock 20% off your investment at businesscareercollege.com. Well, we've been Really nailed that out there, pal. There's an energy on the show today.
I got 8 hours sleep last night.
Is that part of it? That's got to be part of it. I think maybe as well because we're getting closer. We're getting closer to the election, and I know that some people are starting to feel the fatigue, but we're in the home stretch, everyone.
Yeah, and
so
also
this is the time to get up for it.
I can't wait till it's over. Then all that relief. No matter who wins.
What are we gonna talk about?
We're going straight to Mexico.
Well, I like that idea. Mickey Djuric, not in Mexico. In fact, just right into it in Quebec, covering the federal leaders' debates, reporting for Politico. And Mickey, we're so grateful to have you here with us this morning. Where exactly do we find you today?
So I'm in Stanstead, Quebec, very far from Mexico. It's actually snowing right now here.
Really?
Yeah, but I came here because they have a unique library that literally straddles the Canada-U.S. border. So I wanted to come check it out and see how this town has been coping with Donald Trump and his threats to Canada's sovereignty.
Mickey, this Stanstead, Quebec is a fascinating, geographically, and we'll talk about politically and demographically, but geographically, my understanding is some of the houses there, their properties are actually they're on both sides of the border? How does this work?
Yeah, there's literally, so it's a town of 3,000 people, but there's literally 3 border crossings in this town. So there are essentially like some zones where you are both in America and Canada. I ended up interviewing this one guy. I thought I was in Canada and I saw he had an American flag and I was like, oh, are you American? And he's like, yeah, my house is in America. Like my plot of land is in America. And you do see like even the invisible border line. You do see houses that literally straddle the border, and so people wake up in the morning in Canada and cook dinner in or cook breakfast in America. It's really unique.
Wow, that's amazing. And so I would imagine obviously a million different ways to approach your political reporting right now, including tensions between the two countries. I mean, this is, I would imagine, probably, maybe I'm just speculating, maybe even creating some tension between like next door neighbors. Did you see any evidence of it?
No, not evidence of that.
Sorry, Mickey, I'm just trying to be very sensational. That's all.
There is tension, though. You're not wrong. Yeah. A lot of people are rightfully pissed off. Even the mayor is having to work overtime just to convince the locals here not to hate the Americans. So there is tension brewing. But so across the street, so there's this street in this town, and it's called Canusa, which is Canada-USA, and the street actually runs along the Canada-U.S. border. So on the north side is Canadian houses, and on the south side are American houses. And it's close to the library that I was talking about. And you actually see the American houses with Canadian flags on their property because they're trying to show their Canadian neighbors that they are not aligned with Donald Trump's rhetoric about becoming the 51st state. And even one guy I spoke to said he ordered a Canadian flag online and he's waiting for it to arrive so he can put it on his American house.
I wonder what they're tariffing Canadian flags coming into the U.S. right now. It's got to be 300%.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. It's another story for another day, I guess.
Yeah. You're like, when I get to the end of all of my other ideas, I'll take a look at that. Hey, what's the deal with the library there? Is it like the U.S. Department of Homeland Security or something is messing with their library?
Yeah, they cracked down on the library. So this library has been, as I said, it straddles the Canada-U.S. border, and it's been like that for over 120 years. And it was designed to be a symbol of unity and cross-border friendship. But as you mentioned, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security recently cracked down on the library ever since Donald Trump returned to the White House over concerns of drugs crossing the border. So essentially, the front entrance of the building is on the American side. And Canadians were welcome to use that entrance for the last 120 years. But as of this week, the Americans say Canadians cannot use the front entrance. They have to use an emergency exit in the back of the building, which is on the Canadian side. So people are describing this move as classless, petty, demoralizing. The mayor told me it's making some people feel like second-class citizens because the front entrance is beautiful. It's a historic building. You know, you can hang up your coat, you can sit down. It really welcomes you into the library. But the back door that the Canadians have been forced to use as of this week is you're literally walking through essentially a storage room closet, and it's not accessible for people. They have to walk through muddy grass to even get to it. And it's making people upset. Even when I was in the library yesterday, it's kind of funny because everyone who comes into the library is grumbling under their breath over how upset they are about Donald Trump and having to use now the back door to this library that they used to be able to walk through in the front door of.
Yeah, I would imagine that kind of comes. It would strike people as a little bit insulting. Obviously, probably a little bit petty. I guess at the end of the day, it's one of those things that doesn't really matter, like big picture, but it shows in small scale, like in practice, what happens when these tensions start to rise and all of the things that we've been so used to in this relationship for like more than 100 years right now, maybe not forever, but right now have definitely changed.
Yeah, absolutely. And the library is starting to fundraise actually to make the Canadian exit more welcoming, so it doesn't feel like you're walking through a storage room closet. And people here, I say it's so sad that, we have to walk through this back door now. But people here, and especially in the library, they don't think it's a sad story. They want to show the rest of the country that they're not going to break the close relationship that they have had with their neighbors for centuries in this community. So they're persevering and they're showing that Americans and Canadians can still get along despite the politics. They're not buying into the political BS, so to speak.
Yeah, is this typically one of the things that we're so grateful for in talking to you and Nick and all your other colleagues at Politico every Wednesday through the campaign is you've been checking in from all across the country, which has been really great, giving us some insight into these ridings, the issues that are important to the Canadians in those ridings. Is this like a liberal riding, a conservative riding? What have you noticed? Who's the incumbent, et cetera?
So it's typically a liberal riding, but talking to people in the town, including the mayor, they were convinced that this riding was going to flip to either the Bloc Québécois or the Conservative Party this election. But because of the issue of sovereignty and Donald Trump and the ballot box question, or at least some hope the ballot box question is about who can handle Donald Trump best, people in this community are really starting to lean liberal again, despite turning their back on the party the last few years. And there appears to be, and this kind of is aligning with what else I'm seeing in Quebec, there's this surge in liberal support. We saw Donald Trump list Quebec's language law, Bill 96, as a trade barrier. So people who vote Bloc Québécois are typically are now leaning liberal, which is hurting the Conservatives' chances of gaining seats in this province.
So, Mickey, the French language debate tonight, Shauna Feth's in the house with us today, CEO of Alberta Chambers of Commerce. She and I were having a laugh in our green room a few minutes ago. This is one of the most Canadian headlines of all time. Time changed for French language leaders debate due to Montreal Canadiens game. The Habs are fighting for a spot in the postseason. But what's in the French language debate? A lot of the talk here in Alberta is, can Carney convince Francophones that he can speak French proficiently enough to be prime minister? I'm certain that's not the number one issue that will be litigated or determined in tonight's debate. But how do you think the French debate might differ from the English debate about 24 hours later? And what are you expecting to see?
Well, this is the moment for Pierre Poilievre to really shine. He's great at speaking French. Mark Carney has been practicing his French the last few days here in Montreal. And now with the ouster of the Green Party leader, that also you're not going to have him taking up space now to fill the time. So there's going to be more pressure on Mark Carney to perform well during this debate. He's ranked his French 6 out of 10, which seems good enough for people in Quebec here, but if he makes any gaffes or messes up, it will definitely be front page news here in local media here in this province.
Have you been able to get a sense of how the leaders are preparing for the debate? I mean, I know that typically leaders will kind of step back from the limelight a little bit in the 24 or 48 hours leading up to it, but any interesting insights or tidbits you've picked up there in person?
Well, so Mark Carney, I've been told he isn't essentially reinventing the wheel when it comes to debate prep. He's trying to keep it low key. As I mentioned, he has spent the week in Montreal just focusing on his French. He loves the band Down with Webster, and it's tradition of his to blast that music before he hits the debate stage, as we saw with the liberal leadership debate. So I'm told he will be keeping that tradition alive tonight. blasting down with Webster. I haven't heard anything from Pierre Poilievre's team. They usually are pretty tight-lipped when it comes to internal discussions and planning. But I did hear NDP leader Jagmeet Singh, his debate prep includes being surrounded by joy and laughter and good snacks. And
Sounds like
also
palliative care to me.
Well, I mean, he's going to need a lifeline, he's going to have to showcase why he should continue to be leader for the party in this debate. But he's also going to hit the gym before the debate tonight. I'm told when he's on the road, he sticks to weights, and when he's at home, he does jujitsu. So that's a little bit of intel I have.
That's fantastic. We saw a video of Jagmeet trying to rally people, get him dancing the other day, and I host events professionally, and I do live auctions. And every once in a while you're in a room that is just not there with you. Do you know what I mean? And it's just you are trying your hardest, and the sweat is translating from your chest onto your dress shirt, and everyone can notice it, and you feel your body temperature rising, and you're doing everything you can, and they're just not with you. And I was watching that, just kind of commiserating with him. I could feel what he was no doubt feeling, and I thought, gosh, he's like, bless him, he's trying everything, but it's just not translating. Have you been covering over the first number of weeks of this campaign both conservative and liberal campaigning? How have your assignments worked? And maybe you could comment to us on the difference between covering those two campaigns.
Yeah, I've been so as a reporter with Politico, we've been essentially going to interesting ridings. We haven't been necessarily following along leaders. But our reporting does align with Carney's campaign and also Poilievre's campaign. The Conservatives, they're doing really well this campaign. Even in the polls, we're seeing Stephen Harper. He's doing much better than Stephen Harper did when he won a majority back in 2011. His rallies have been huge. I've been saying he's like a rock star at these. So he's successfully been able to grow his base. I've also covered a Carney rally, much less people, but the energy is there, and he mostly focuses on talking about sovereignty in the 51st state. You can really tell that the Liberals really want the ballot box question to be about Donald Trump, and Carney is trying to position himself to be the person who he can take. He is positioning himself and arguing to Canadians that he's the best one to take that on, where Poilievre on the campaign trail and during these rallies seem to be focusing more on affordability issues, while sometimes touching upon our relationship with the U.S.
Mickey, we're talking to Mickey Djuric. If you're just joining us on the Real Talk live stream presented by California Closets, Mickey, a correspondent for Politico. You can read Mickey's work and the rest of the team at Politico.com. I'll be contributing to their Ottawa playbook in time for Thursday, in time for tomorrow. You can check it all out by clicking on Canada at Politico.com. Donald Trump lists Quebec language law Bill 96 as a barrier to trade. Did that have any impact, as far as you can tell, on political sentiment, maybe benefiting the Liberals or hurting the Conservatives in any way in Quebec?
Yeah, it definitely appears to be helping the Liberals. They think that Mark Carney will be the best person who can defend Canada's sovereignty. And there's kind of a sentiment of like, Quebec, they've always been promoting their own sovereignty, and there's a sense of like, well, okay, finally Canada is on board and seeing the importance of this. But they also view it better to preserve Canadian culture as a whole than to lose Canadian culture to the U.S. And that's an example through Bill 96, the language law. And I should note that Poilievre, even when he was riding high in the polls the last 2 years, that didn't really translate in Quebec. So he's always had an uphill battle in this province, even before Donald Trump came back to the White House and started this trade war with us and talked about sovereignty and Canada becoming a 51st state. So this has just made it much more difficult for the Conservatives to gain traction in this province, and it's really helping the Liberals. And we've seen throughout this whole race that it's likely going to be a two-party race come election day between Conservatives and Liberals. And I mentioned earlier that, Poilievre has grown the Conservative Party greatly. The only problem is the Liberals are just doing a little bit better right now. And that's because they are able to take support that typically goes to the Bloc Québécois or the New Democrats. Those voters are more inclined to vote for Liberals this time around. And I've started to hear people on the doorsteps too say that they want whoever is elected, whether it's Conservative, whether it's Liberal, people are telling me they want a government with a strong mandate. They don't want to have a minority government. And then we're headed to an election maybe again in 8 months. They want someone who can match a Trump strong mandate with our own strong mandate, regardless of what party that is. So I'm curious to see what the turnout is going to be this election, because a lot of people I've talked to really seem motivated to vote this year.
Yeah. I know we've got to let you jet because you've got a busy day. You're going to be, I don't know if you're following him, knocking on doors. You're going to be spending some time with Anthony Housefather. What's kind of the key storyline you'll be paying attention to there, or do you know yet?
Yeah, no, I do know. I'm speaking to him because he represents the largest Jewish riding in Canada, in Montreal, Mount Royal. And the Conservative Party has actually been trying to making a strategic push to court Jewish Canadian votes. The party is hoping to capitalize on a growing dissatisfaction with the Liberal government's handling of anti-Semitism following the Israel-Hamas war. And the Conservative Party has an extensive outreach within the Jewish community, specifically in Toronto and Montreal, in an effort to break the Liberals' grip in these areas. They're voter-rich areas. They play a key role in who becomes Canada's next prime minister. And many of these places are battlegrounds. So even a small shift in voter allegiance could tip the scales in favor of the Conservative Party. And we saw that recently in Toronto St. Paul's by-election. Conservative candidate Don Stewart won that riding by about 600 votes.
Yeah.
And that riding was held by Liberals for over 30 years, big Jewish population. And sorry, one more note on that. What I'm actually hearing from several Jewish voters, which I was surprised to hear, is that people view the Liberal government as being hypocritical when it comes to these pro-Palestinian rallies that we're seeing, considering Ottawa shut down the Freedom Convoy with the Emergencies Acts. And these people are saying they didn't support the convoy at the time, but they point to the Canadian flag and they say it was waved during the Freedom Convoy protest, but then they're seeing the Canadian flag burn at an anti-Israel protest. So they are dismayed as why the Freedom Convoy was shut down in the fashion it was, but the protests in their neighborhoods in Toronto and Montreal that have been happening for years aren't. So some voters point to that as proof in their own eyes that the Liberal government has turned its back on its core Canadian values. And that's driving people to either join the Conservative Party or say they're going to vote Conservative Party this year.
Fantastic reporting, Mickey. Thank you so much for making time for us. Mickey Djuric coming to us live from Quebec on behalf of Politico at Politico.com. Make sure you follow Mickey on X as well. And we look forward to the next time our paths cross.
Yes, thank you for having me. I love Alberta, so I'll come back anytime.
Oh, perfect. That's great. Wait, did you say you're from Alberta or you love Alberta?
No, I love it. But you know what? I started my journalism career in Wainwright, Alberta.
Wainwright?
So, yeah, I owe a lot to this province.
Wainwright is an absolute, for people that don't know, it's a fantastic, I mean, not just the people there and the community, but its history. And it's, Wainwright is just a marvelous community that I don't know that a lot of people know about, but anytime you visit, it's just absolutely fantastic. That would have been a print career. You were working in print journalism there?
Yeah, the Wainwright Star News.
Does it still exist?
Yeah, it does. It does.
I'm always happy to hear about independent or smaller. Is it part of a conglomerate, or is it part of like kind of an ownership group that has a bunch of rural papers, or what's its format? What's its structure?
It was privately owned. I still believe it's privately owned. And so it's, I think they renamed it to
Star Edge.
The Wainwright Star.
Look at
this.
Or
Star Edge. Yes.
Yeah,
sorry.
starnews.ca. We're checking this out.
Yes.
Shout out
I
to
love
them.
The plug. Shout out.
Hey,
Wainwright Star News.
Look at how how they're serving their audience. It is, Johnny, you wonder what's the weather in Wainwright, Alberta right now? Maybe you're going to head out. You're going to walk your dog. Maybe you're going to go play. You don't know what you're going to play some golf. It is not only is it 3 degrees, Mickey, it is 3.3 degrees Celsius.
They're very accurate.
That's how on top of it they are at the Wainwright Star News. Awesome, my friend. We'll talk to you again some other time soon.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Yeah, you got it. Mickey Djuric on behalf of Politico. I saw some interesting comments in the live chat. Wise Kyle says about the library. The library is a fascinating story, isn't it? The border kind of running right through the middle
fascinating.
of it. Fascinating. But Wise Kyle says, really? We're getting this upset about a door? It's not about the door, man. The door is the metaphor, right? Or the door, wouldn't they say that this is the door is the symptom,
It's
bro?
a metaphor, man.
It's a metaphor.
You gotta look deeper. You gotta read between the lines.
It's a metaphor, man. But in all seriousness, the door is not the issue, dude.
No.
The door is the representation, the manifestation of the issue, dude. The rug is not the issue, dude.
You Canadians come in the other door.
Canadians come in. Where have we heard that before?
Why are you coming in the American door here? Let me show you my passport. I'm a dually.
Papers.
I use both doors.
I saw that Cliff in our live chat, powered by Park Power. By the way, get exclusive offers on internet, electricity, and natural gas by visiting parkpower.ca/realtalk. Cliff says Carney's biggest worry tonight will be able to, he can't find the word, let's say, or he can't find the phrase, and then he freezes. He says, because he can't, and then he says, and so then he'll answer in English. And Cliff says that would be a terrible look. I would suggest
I agree.
that, and Cliff, you're 100% right, that is not an option.
No.
Just answering in English is not an option.
So I think there will be some reservation. There will be a stumble or two from Carney. But again, and not to compare this to playoffs again, but it's like game one home ice advantage for Pierre Poilievre. And I already see this.
Even though he's from Calgary.
No, but just because he's the better one at French. And I know you say it doesn't matter. But I think tonight, after the debate, people are going to say Pierre won. And then I think tomorrow, when we get into English, Carney's going to be a lot more on point. He's going to be able to articulate his thoughts perfectly. And I think, he'll have this comeback game. And then everyone will say, oh, here we are. We're tied up 1-1.
Yeah. Folks are enjoying my impression of the dude. Thank you very much. I tried. I blew the rug reference, but I tried.
That's like just your opinion, man.
Yeah, that's like, the rug really tied the room together. Dubious says, is giving me, and I'm not just reading this because it's praise. We'll read the criticism as well, but Dubious gave me a 10 out of 10 for the palliative care joke. Thank you very much. But says, follows up by saying, when is Carney going to be on Real Talk? So here's the deal, friends. All of the major party leaders have been invited. Jagmeet's team says the next time he's in Edmonton, if he's in Edmonton, they say he'll join us in studio. We always ask for in studio, right? It's relatively, it's not easy, but it's easier to get him on Zoom. I'd rather have him sitting in the studio. So they say, Jagmeet, we've been in touch with the Carney team and they're corresponding with us. I think they're just kind of fluffing us up and fucking with us, basically. I don't think that Mark Carney's going to come on the show before the election. That's the vibe I get, but I never give up. Never, ever, ever, ever give up, kids. Poilievre's
Nardwar
team,
got him.
we're pretty sure...
Fucker.
Fucker. We're pretty sure that our emails are going to Pierre Poilievre's junk inbox, junk box, because we have not received a response.
He just marks them as junk.
I think we are actively being shunned by the Conservative leader, which is really too bad because I'd love to chat with him. We have some parallels, Pierre and I. He went to high school with my brother. You guys know this. And we can let you know that Maxime Bernier, leader of the People's Party of Canada, will be leading off our next episode of Real Talk. We will have we're going to have Max out of the gates, Mr. Bernier out of the gates on our Thursday episode, and then we will have Ken Bosencool and Shannon Phillips, our Real Talk Roundtable, right after that. So I think that our next episode is going to be a real banger.
Yeah, and you know what bothers me about Pierre not responding to us? It's not that he's not taking the interview. It's just all the other leaders are responding. They're like, we're busy. We'll get with you later. Pierre's just like, we don't exist.
But that's been
You're hurting my heart.
That's been the playbook.
You're hurting my heart, Mr.
And that's
Poilievre.
fine. Like for politicians, sometimes the playbook is we're not going to be doing, like you see these from some political leaders. They say we're not doing like local media, right? Like they'll only talk to the journalists that are traveling on the plane, right? The so-called big shots. They won't do the local shows. And some other media strategy is we're just not responding. And quite frankly, I'm not surprised. A bit of a peek behind the curtain to make it interesting for some people. A lot of the comms team and kind of the senior strategy team from the Jason any UCP government in Alberta is now working for Pierre Poilievre. And so it's a lot of the same mindset. It's a lot of the same approach with Poilievre's Conservatives and the media strategy. I was curious to see how Mickey would answer that, because you're hearing from some folks. My former colleague David Aiken of Global News, one of the more prominent political analysts in the country, was. Did you see his? He posted from the plane yesterday, kind of giving some insight and talking about how much more difficult it's been these days to cover the election, trying to travel with campaigns. Remember, the Poilievre team said we're not bringing journalists on the plane. Well, now they're trying to figure it out, so these outlets are having to. It's typically teams have wanted it to be easy. Like the parties have wanted it to they've wanted to remove barriers to have journalists flying with them and covering the campaigns. And that mentality has kind of shifted now for a number of reasons, I think probably including costs, but I think also maybe there's a certain protectionism around the leader. Maybe they don't want journalists to have access to them all the time. Maybe they don't want them to be seeing them on the plane all the time. I don't know. So let us know what you think. I see people right now asking if they can submit questions for Maxime Bernier. 100%, all the time. You can submit questions for any guest we have.
Of course you can.
Live in the live chat, which I don't recommend as much. We try to keep an eye on it, but it moves fast. What are we averaging? 1,500 comments a show now. But you can also, of course, send us an email anytime to talk@ryanjesperson.com. We're going to check in with the president and CEO of Alberta Chambers of Commerce in just a quick second. That, of course, is Shauna Feth. But right now, I want to let you know that today, the day we're doing this, the 16th of April, is the final day for you to get your name into the mix with the Full House Lottery. Somebody is going to win. The question is, will it be you? Check out fullhouse.ca right now. Of course, this lottery we're so proud to support. Why? Well, a number of different reasons, including the fact that this lottery is helping fund innovative and world-class cardiac care at both the Royal Alexandra Hospital and the University of Alberta Hospital. So when you purchase your Full House Lottery tickets, basically what you're doing is contributing to world-class health care across the Metro Edmonton region, and we know for a fact that these hospitals are serving Canadians across the western part of this country. So there's 4 ways to buy tickets, including this 50-50. Make sure you check it out. The current jackpot at more than $1.6 million, with the winner taking half. 3 grand prizes, including a $2.25 million grand prize dream home. Comes with an Alfa Romeo and 20 grand, plus dream vacations for life, a dream tiny home, and more. You can check out the website. That's fullhouse.ca. You can show up in person at their dream home. You can get the details on their website, of course. And, of course, you can also give them a call at 780-424-6161. Pick up your Full House Lottery tickets by the deadline. That's the end of day today, April 16th. What an exciting day for our friends at the Ranch Golf and Country Club. Today is opening day. And John, because I consider myself a very proud and intrepid journalist, I'm going to head out to the ranch so I can give everybody a full report on how everything looks. Fairways, greens. Let's be honest, guys. I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the sand traps, but I will have a full report for you. You can tour the course yourself by checking out theranchgolf.com, and you can take that virtual tour. I love how they do this. Nothing like the first tee box. I like to cut the corner over that water, try to sail the trees. I end up in the trap more often than not. You can go from holes 1 to 18, even 19. Learn a little bit more about what the reception might look like when you book your golf tournament there at the Ranch, Alberta's top public golf course. We're grateful for our friends at California Closets. This is a proudly Canadian-owned and operated company designing and installing the absolute best custom closets and storage solutions for the entire home. California Closets of Canada installs are guaranteed for life. And all these installations are a result of these consultations. You sit down with their designer, you talk about your vision for your garage, your guest room, your primary bedroom, walk-in closet, whatever it is. You talk to them about budget, and then they put a plan together. You will not regret. You got nothing to lose. That free consultation with California Closets. You can book it today at californiaclosets.ca. And if you're going to be entertaining friends and family this weekend, in particular celebrating Easter, and you'd love to be able to spend more time with them and less time in the kitchen, consider the Friesen Brothers easiest Easter dinner ever. The Easter dinner box is just $79.99, feeds 4. So if you're feeding 40, just order 10 of them. I don't know how you do better than that. Bang for buck. You get the turkey, dark and white meat, roasted baby potatoes, creamy dill carrots, tray buns, cranberry sauce, turkey gravy, sour cream, bacon bits, and more every everybody will have something special. You can order it online or in store. Pick it up just in time to pop it in the oven and serve. You'll find all the details at cateringbyfriesen.com/Easter dinner.
Feeding 40 at Easter. Jeez.
Some people do it, man. I used to look back and I give a shout out to my grandma Norma Jesperson.
Hey, Grandma.
Yeah, and she was just like a force of nature on the hospitality front. So they had 4 kids. My dad number 2, and then all of them basically had 3 or 4 kids. And so by the time you'd get all the family together, it was bonkers.
40 people at Easter during an election? That's a whole other debate.
That is
Ryan.
a whole other debate. The best part about that is you get these just a nice relaxed, I'm sure there'll be nice relaxed circumstances where one uncle brings up the party he's voting for and then the aunt across the table disagrees, and then you can just have a nice Easter chat.
Respectful, no gravy and potatoes being thrown at anyone at all.
Nice, respectful Easter chat about politics. Shauna Feth is the president and CEO of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. You're chuckling away over here. Are you a big entertainer? Like, do you have big Easter plans? You having everybody to your place?
Yeah, we do. It's massive and probably around 40 actually.
Is that right?
We just virtually had a set of twins over the weekend. So
what?
Yeah, really exciting. Yeah, our daughter just had twin
my gosh.
babies. So yeah, so the numbers are going up. It seems like every year the numbers are going up with our family.
Congratulations,
yeah,
twins.
Thank you.
Are these your first grandchildren?
No, that's they're actually 12 and 13. So
12 and 13.
Yeah, we have a baker's dozen now. So,
oh my gosh.
So
well,
you can just imagine
congratulations.
what Easter is, or Thanksgiving, or Christmas. Those holidays are all pretty exciting.
Oh, they're just the best.
Yeah.
Well, this is obviously crunch time before this election.
Yeah.
We're kind of looking at our production schedule, like our editorial schedule. We had to make sure we got you in before the election because we want your take and the Alberta Chamber's take on kind of the business side of things and the stories that you're following. Last time we chatted, basically it was all kind of speculation around what the election issues would be and who might surge ahead based on what. And now we're seeing real-time polling. What are you making of what you've been seeing through the first few weeks of this campaign?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've seen kind of a reversal of fortunes in terms of, a month ago it was a very different story, or 6 weeks ago, than what we're seeing today. I think, both candidates really need to come out with their platforms very publicly in terms of the business of the country of Canada. And, there's some pretty hefty issues on the line here in terms of, how are we going to compete with the United States, and how are we making Canada's economy better, and how are we supporting projects and corridors and legislation that's going to support businesses in the country of Canada.
That word corridor has all of a sudden become very significant this campaign, hasn't it? Talk about a national energy corridor. This isn't the first time the idea has surfaced, but I would imagine that for people that are doing business in Canada's energy capital in Alberta, that's a big deal.
Absolutely. I mean, this has been, this is not new news. This is something we've been talking about for decades in terms of being able to get our critical minerals, our energy into the east in our own country, and getting pipelines built east to west and into the north, and we really need to pay attention to platforms that are talking about the importance of that. If we were able to tomorrow export across Canada, we would be able to offset any impact that tariffs would have to our economy. So, you really got to think about that in terms of which party is going to be able to do that, which party is going to be able to make sure that Canada can be great and that we can play to our strengths.
I would say, like, when we talk about the ballot box question, everybody's talking about which party leader as prime minister could best negotiate with Donald Trump, could best negotiate with the United States. A lot of the polling, I think, reflects how Canadians are perceiving or answering that specific question. Do you feel like that's the most important or on-point question that people should be considering right now?
It is important, but I think it's not the only thing that we need to be paying attention to. Like, we really need to be paying attention to how has our economy been performing? Who is going to be the leader that's going to support us? I mean, excuse me, just a few stats, but, over the past decade, the GDP in Canada has grown just 1.7%. So when you compare that to 18% in the U.S., it actually puts us the second lowest out of 38 OECD countries. Second lowest out of 38. And that comparative of 1.7 to 18%, why is that happening? Why are we not growing in pace with the United States? And why are we not able to, perform on par with them. I mean, we have incredible resources in the country of Canada, and we should be, on par with the States. And we were, when you look at historically, we were pretty much in line with the States. And then now it's just, we've bottomed out and they've been rising. And so we need to really pay attention to the platforms and the leaders that are going to really look at that economic policy and how are we going to make it so that there's more investment into the country, that we can get projects built, that we can reduce regulatory burdens, and look at some of those harming policies that are really hindering big chunks of our economy and industries that we need to thrive.
You got to see Sean Haney, the host of Real Ag Radio on Sirius XM, was on the show just a few days ago, spitting fire about regulatory burdens and hurdles. And it was, what did he call us, Johnny? A constipated nation or something like that? Or he said something, you just said, like, Canada's big on thinking and not on doing. It was kind of an interesting take. People can check that out in our archives at abchamber.ca. People can check out, members and non-members alike, your team's work, not just on building Alberta business, but on business priorities for the 2025 election. And you've done some digging, your team has, in business investment per worker. And I think that when you compare that to other nations, in particular the United States, it's kind of an interesting talking point that maybe not a lot of folks are considering. Can you take us into that?
Yeah, so when you look at that business investment per worker, we are down 15% in Canada. That's a really staggering statistic, simply because it means that money is going other places. It's not coming into the country. We're not seeing that investment into new growth, development, innovation. And I mean, that's what, Canadians are fantastic at innovation, and we're really great at looking at new technologies and new ways of doing things. And I think that, we really need to be paying attention to, again, the leaders and the platforms that are going to increase that investment, are really going to, encourage that investment, and are going to put, the structure, the framework, the policy in place that will make that happen in a more effective way, and provide more of that confidence in those investments into the country.
What would be some examples, like, to get a little bit more specific on where you think that there's real potential for that investment, maybe where there was investment, where there's not as much anymore? Like, what would be some specifics?
Really interesting. So I sat on a panel last week with other chamber leaders from across the country. And, of course, because I was the Alberta girl on the panel, I did some research about economic corridors and some of the projects that have been started and stalled. So there have been 14 projects that have not been able to reach completion. And so I'll just use the TC Energy project as an example. So it started in 2016. It was stalled due to opposition in 2019, I believe. And these are off the top of my head. And then so that's the corridor, the Energy East corridor, the TC Energy project. And then by 2021, 2022, they pulled the plug completely. And the reason cited was direct political opposition to that project. So when you hear that it's not just the challenges of the legislation, it's not just the policies, but they felt as a company that there was direct opposition to getting that project done. That really speaks to me in terms of, we need to be asking these questions of whoever our next leader will be, and making sure that that is something that we won't see anymore. Our country could be so strong, and yet we're not, because we're not able to complete important infrastructure projects like that. Yeah,
it seems to have been less of a barrier, at least perceived, with the Conservatives in years past, although I guess the Liberals can boast that they're the ones that got TMX built. And I know everyone's got an opinion, like you just described, on Energy East or Northern Gateway. I know that the Supreme Court obviously factors into that one. What I find particularly interesting is polling shows that a national appetite for another pipeline is more in favor of such a project now, and quite significantly more in favor of a project like that in regions that typically oppose that type of project than it would have been just a few years ago. And so you see kind of a bit of a changing of tune. And then I know that Mark Carney's been accused, in particular by Alberta's premier, of kind of talking out of both sides of his mouth, of in Alberta saying that he's open, or he thinks he can get another pipeline built, of maybe reflecting en français a different perspective when he's speaking to French Canadians in Quebec. And then amid all of this, kind of a whipping up or maybe at least more talk about a sovereign Alberta, which I find to be particularly interesting because as pollsters are telling us that there's more of a chance to get a pipeline built now than there was 5 years ago, there seems to be more of an appetite. And I say there seems to be more of an appetite for Alberta to leave than there was 5 years ago. It's kind of an interesting, I don't know how to reconcile the two.
Yeah, and I first and foremost, I mean, I think there is more appetite. I think there's a lot more collaboration going on between our premiers. I think that happened as a result of, what was happening in Ottawa with, there was kind of a vacuum around leadership until Carney took over the Liberal Party. And that vacuum created opportunity, to be honest with you, in terms of, our leadership, our premiers all started talking. There's a lot of appetite to really advance the Canadian economy with a Team Canada approach. And I really believe that that's the way we need to move forward. And I hope the momentum continues, because that's how we're going to get projects built. That's how we're going to make sure that we create that stable economic outlook for future generations. And I mean, with the way we've been trending, it's kind of scary in terms of what that means for our next generations of business owners and entrepreneurs.
How does LNG factor into this, do you think? Like, does that serve as a model to you, or how would you, to Canadians and to people that'll see this segment, what does LNG say about Canada's potential, Alberta's potential?
Yeah, so I mean, the projections are that by 2040, LNG is expected to rise. The demand for LNG is expected to rise by 76%.
Jeez.
And yet, at this point in time, there is no LNG project in place that is online that can get that product to market. I mean, so really, really great. LNG Canada is expected to come online in May here. And just to put that into some sort of perspective, that will that project is projected to generate $90 billion in revenue to the BC government, and up to $6 billion in economic development opportunities for Indigenous communities in BC, and up to $100,000 or up to 100,000 jobs annually in that province. So just to give you an idea of the importance of LNG, that one project alone. So knowing that there's going to be a 76% rise in demand, how are we getting that product to market? And we need more than just one access point.
Yeah.
And we need more than just one project to do that.
So, obviously it's the day that you and I are talking, federal leaders, or at least the ones that will be participating in that debate, will be going head to head in French. And then we've got the English language debate the day after on the 17th of April. Yourself as a Canadian, yourself as a voter, and also as president and CEO of the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, what's one thing that you'll be paying attention to? And I'm asking for a specific, like, what's one question you want to see, or what's one interaction you're looking for, or what's one back and forth in the debates that you think will say a lot, one that you think Canadians should be watching for? Well,
I think the question of productivity, our next leader needs to really understand that we have a real productivity lag in our country. The stats that I've suggested show that. We need to define how we are going to pinpoint the challenges around productivity, how we're going to support the businesses to actually grow and generate new ways of doing business, and how we are going to be, much stronger coming out of this election with a new leader, and how our economy is going to be much stronger. That's really in all of my hats, as a mother, grandmother, as the leader of the Alberta Chamber, as a friend, and a colleague, productivity will increase the economic development of the entire country. It'll increase the amount of money in Canadians' pockets and provide better jobs, better resources, and better opportunities for business growth and innovation.
I can't believe in all of the context that I presented you as, I didn't include grandmother. Geez, right after you tell us there's newborn twins that have just brought joy to your family. But you're right. Like every single person, or most people that are voting, are considering it from exactly that.
Yeah.
They're looking at the elderly people in their lives. They're looking at the newborns or the youngins.
Yeah.
Right? They're looking at their business or their friends that own businesses. Maybe their friends that can't find jobs.
Yeah.
They're looking at their, there's a million different things that will inform how people vote, and that's just such an important point to consider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And like I said, we need to just be paying attention to the platforms that, we're talking a lot about business, but this is about individuals. Businesses are run by individuals, and they're your neighbors and your brothers and your sisters. And when businesses are thriving and growing in our country, our communities are thriving and growing, bottom line, and it creates better opportunity for everyone. So I just, I really urge your viewers, really pay attention to the platforms, pay attention to the policy, and pay attention to what is being said around new visions for the country of Canada in terms of the next generation.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot on this show. How this obviously the this tension, whatever you want to call it, with the Americans, this bizarre kind of reality that none of us are used to right now is obviously overshadowing almost everything else in that federal election. And on one hand, it's understandable, and on the other hand, it makes me quite nervous. That I don't know that people are considering a lot of other things. And we see that even in the responses. This is just anecdotal, but when we'll post something like our highlight videos on TikTok or Facebook or X, see, I'm always promoting what we do, LinkedIn. But we'll get these different comments from people. And I think it's a testament to the show that the audience crosses the political spectrum. But I would say some of the more conservative-leaning audience members are all saying, like, is everybody just forgetting the last 10 years? Like, is everybody just forgetting whatever? And I know that that's the angle a lot of people will approach this from. And then certainly, of course, there's the conversation about Pierre Poilievre's resume and whether or not Mark Carney is better suited to negotiate with Donald Trump. So it just goes to show that there are so many people looking for so many different things out of this election. Ultimately, we'll find out at April, on April 28th that evening, who managed to provide the most compelling case that they can do what's best for Canada, for Alberta, and of course that includes the economy. I want to make sure that people have a chance to check out the website, the work that your team's been putting in. It's remarkable at abchamber.ca, including their Alberta priorities and how the Chamber is advocating for business in Alberta, solutions to businesses' toughest problems so you can overcome barriers to growth. A big part of that is obviously membership in the Alberta Chambers of Commerce, where community is everything. You can learn more about getting involved, their upcoming events, and more by checking out abchamber.ca. It's always good to see you here. I guess the next time we talk, we'll know who's forming federal government. We'll probably know what the cabinet looks like.
Yeah, we'll have lots to talk about.
We'll
next
talk to
month.
you then.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, congratulations again to your daughter, your entire family, and a happy Easter in advance.
Yes, you as well.
All right,
you.
wonderful to see you. That's Shauna Feth joining us, of course, from the Alberta Chambers of Commerce. Make sure you check them out online on their website, and we'll link to it in the show notes as well. That's abchamber.ca. When we're talking about money, when we're talking about investments, when we're talking about our well-being on the wealth management front, of course, I think personally of North Road Investment Council, Marshall Carey and their team based out of Edmonton, but doing work with and on behalf of discerning families and organizations across Alberta and beyond. In Canada, it's typical for investment advice and financial planning advice to be delivered through a bank or a bank-owned brokerage firm. Maybe that's what your setup is right now. The team at North Road would like to give successful savers and successful investors a chance to basically experience wealth management advice on a platform of true independence. What a change that would be. Through the support of professionals with CFP, CFA designations, your financial plan will be delivered in connection to an hourly fee and not from commissions paid from investment products. This is a cool and kind of a low-risk way to try something different when it comes to managing your wealth, your investments. Obviously of extreme importance to you, your family, no doubt about that. Start the conversation today. North Road Investment Council in the business of building relationships worth investing in. You can contact them today via their website. That's northroadic.com. We're so proud to be partnering with UCAN Youth Services to ensure that everybody knows about the amazing and life-changing work that they're doing with young adults. Their work starts with young people that are, well, quite frankly, they're interacting with police a lot at age 12 to 17 through their relentless outreach. But for young adults, like age 18 to 25, they have a couple projects that, well, they merge educational and employment opportunities, including the Verto project. This is a really, really neat programmed portion that runs over 9 consecutive weeks. It helps candidates. These are young adults that have all the potential in the world. They just need somebody to show some faith in them. They maybe need a little counsel on transitioning back into school, getting away from harmful lifestyles. Employment is the goal. for youth attending this program. And of course, a big part of this is collaborations and partnerships with employers like IKEA, as an example. I'm speaking to those of you that are hiring on behalf of organizations, in particular in entry-level positions. If you'd like to welcome youth that have graduated through this program, they've got that huge endorsement from UCAN Youth Services. You can contact the team today by visiting ucan.ca. And a shout out as well to our friends at Complete Care Restoration. We're going to be talking to you about Jasper in just a quick second. I want to show you their website first, real quick, because I want you to remember this name, CompleteCareRestoration.ca. Their teams are there in Jasper and quite frankly across the province, helping communities, helping individuals that have been impacted by fire, flood, smoke damage, sewer backups, you name it. They've seen it. They've done it. They are the contractor you can rely on. Expert disaster recovery and restoration services and a locally owned business. This is what we love, working with them. They treat every project like it's their own. You can send them an email anytime at CompleteCareRestoration.ca to follow the link, or give them a shout. Maybe punch this number in your phone, 780-454-0776. That's Complete Care Restoration.
Just put them on speed dial.
It's almost like... It's so funny. I remember they said that the first time that they came on board, we were talking to them. They're building our studio, and we're chatting with one of the members of their ownership group. And he goes, I guess that would make us the only Real Talk sponsor that hopes you never have to call us.
That's great.
Yeah, isn't it?
It's the best tagline ever.
Yeah.
We're having a debate about politics at the dinner table inside the YouTube chat right now.
Oh, is that what people are getting into?
Yeah, some people are saying, yeah, we gotta teach people. It varies family to family. My feeling is no. Get out of here. When I'm nom-nomming, when I'm eating, dinner, especially with family, the people you love, I get it. Some families hate each other, whatever. But I relate that to relaxing, savoring, laughing, enjoying. I don't want stressful, thought-provoking conversation. And maybe that is different family to family, but I guarantee the family or person who's saying that, there's someone at your dinner table who every time you bring up politics while they're having mashed potatoes and gravy, they are fucking uncomfortable. So just save it for, the wine after. So that person could be like, hey, I'm tired. I have to go home. And they're lying. They just don't want to talk politics.
Yeah, fair. Matthew, I just see this popping in, and I see Matthew's little blue star beside his name.
Hey,
a proud member of our YouTube channel. What's up, Matthew? We appreciate that. Matthew says, one important thing with us, everybody in my extended family generally shares the same views. And he says, so political discussions these days tend to be about dumb Trump moments. That from Matthew. I definitely do not come from when you say extended family, my extended family definitely does not share the same political views, all of them, because it's impossible. Number one, because there's if you know anything about dairy farming or anything about the Jespersons in Stony Plain, Spruce Grove, Westlock, there's a whole bunch of them, and broad representation across the political spectrum. I actually think that's a great thing. Sometimes it creates some tension, I would say, for sure. I think back during the days of COVID and, different people feeling very differently about everything, basically, including, churches couldn't gather, mask mandates, vaccinations, those types of things.
All of that.
And so I'm just glad that we're through the COVID and now we can all just relax and deal with Donald Trump.
I know.
And his threat to Canada's existence as a sovereign nation.
Again, I don't mind talking politics, especially with family. I do have a problem.
Really?
I do have a problem with it when it's at the table because I feel like the younger people don't really want to speak up. Maybe they're at the end at the little kids' table or whatever. Yeah. Also, I like the word indoctrination comes to mind, especially when the head of the table or the men of the family are talking the loudest and all that. That's why I say just do it after. And the other thing is it's relaxing to me. Or dinner is give me 30 minutes to just put my defenses down, not have to put them up. It'd be Ryan, imagine you're getting a massage and then the masseuse is rubbing on your shoulders and he or she just bends down and says in your ear, hey, I know you're really relaxed right now, but I really want to show you some data on the COVID pandemic.
Fired immediately.
And my opinions.
You're fired.
And my opinions on trans rights.
Oh, yeah.
Get out of here.
Get out of here. I went for a massage a short time ago, by the way, and I loved in the list that you check off, you register online before you go.
Of course.
This is also when you go on the higher level of Uber, what is it, Uber, whatever, not the X, but the Uber Comfort.
Improving that rating.
Well, because you can choose the level of conversation you like. And I always feel kind of bad doing this, but I'm just telling the truth. That is always silence. I just always appreciate silence. I just think that that's the best. Cheryl outside says, I have smart and spirited daughters who frequently point out the error of my ways. She says, so supper is lively. And she says, and I guarantee you I'm going to miss that when they move out. She says, engagement is connection if we're kind. I think that that's an absolutely fantastic way to put it. Engagement is connection if we're kind. See, that's the caveat. If we're kind.
Sure. But why during dinner? Why is this like undoable?
Well,
we have to do it during dinner?
I don't know. It's just like
there's the pre-dinner drinks, there's the after-dinner wine. Okay, fine.
Well, that's why during dinner, because everyone's had their drinks.
Can we just do it during dessert?
Yeah.
Because I can eat a piece of pie in like 3 seconds and I'll just get up and go to the bathroom.
Yeah. Interesting. Justin says, Johnny, I got to disagree. He says family is where some of these discussions need to happen more often, in my opinion. That's an interesting comment from Justin. I was walking our dog yesterday down the sidewalk, and I see this house. I know probably many of you have a house like this in your neighborhood, and you're riding, as we would say in the context of an election. And I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but I live in Edmonton Center. Has anybody heard about that? Have I mentioned that before? And this is going to be an interesting riding, or at least we expect it to be. But there's a house there that has a Liberal candidate. It's representing the Liberal candidate, celebrate a lawn sign, and then they have a lawn sign for the NDP candidate.
Oh.
And I thought, gosh, isn't that interesting? Because number one, on the positive side, it goes to show that they're quite open about the fact that they're supporting different candidates, that there's freedom of thought and freedom of expression in that household, obviously. But at the same time, I thought, how frustrating for the Liberal and NDP candidate in that riding to look at that house and go, gosh, we've got one of their votes, 2 would be better, but the way that it is right now, the one's just canceling out the other. It's as though we didn't have it in the first place. Yeah. You know what I mean? It would be tough for 2 relatively progressive candidates to look at that and to swallow that pill. Also kind of an interesting circumstance. I saw somebody post a video yesterday, somebody that was out door knocking, and I recognized their video immediately because it's my street. And they posted the video of an absolutely unhinged homeowner screaming at the door knockers, and I couldn't believe it because I thought, gosh, this guy is my neighbor. John, we've lived in the house for 13 years. Mm-hmm. I have literally, no bullshit, literally never seen this guy.
Is this like the guy on the Burbs, like the family next door who they only come out at night?
I didn't even, if you could have put 2 people in front of me and said which person lives in that house, and I wouldn't have known which one it is. And my first introduction to this guy is a random post on Facebook of him absolutely berating door knockers based on the party that they're knocking for. And I thought, oh my gosh, this guy lives right across the street from me.
We talked about this weeks ago. Why would you want this job? Why would you want to do it in this day and age? I would just do social media, large gatherings where you can answer a bunch of people's questions as they line up or in a crowd. Boom, 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 boom. I'd be so scared to knock on someone's door and just be like, hey, and they're like, come on in. Let's just stay out here on the porch.
Yeah. I don't know. I think people deserve credit for doing that. I sure respect anybody that does that, especially in hostile territory.
Dude.
You know exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
Like if you're knocking doors for the Conservatives in Liberal or NDP country, if you're knocking doors for the NDP in Conservative country, that's not easy.
Well, you would argue that you need to go to those doors where you can hopefully sway someone who's on the fence, right? But those doors could also be the people you gauged wrong, and they're just on the other side, and they're like, yeah, I would like to talk to you face to face.
How about this from Sharon, who says one election she had all 3 parties' signs in her yard. Wow.
I like it.
You like that?
Well, whatever. I'd rather see all the party signs. I get that you want to show your support and you want other people to know, but in certain community, like I would never put a sign on my lawn. I don't think ever, unless it was your name on it, unless I was supporting a friend or a family member.
Yeah.
I feel like, who you vote for, and I know we talk about it on the show because that's our job, but it's kind of private, is it not? It keeps people, friends.
Well, I think that's why lawn signs are so significant, because people are sticking their necks out there and they're telling their neighbors how they vote. Sometimes it's obvious.
I see that too, yeah.
Like the house, like there's one house in our neighborhood, bless them. I think it's hilarious, but the house is like, has every sign, like say, hands off our parks, save public health care. We love libraries.
Wow.
Like you just like So you just know, and then the NDP sign goes up, and you go, "Yeah, that's very on brand, right? Very on brand." And then on our street, it's like there's we live in like a heritage area, and so there's not a lot of infills. But when there is an infill, they're typically pretty magnificent. And there's this beautiful new home, and a conservative sign went up, and I went, "Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, that's about."
Yeah. I could pick the communities where the conservative signs are, and they're all overlooking the river valley.
We had a guy.
Just kidding, guys. I know a few.
We had a guy pop into our studio just the other day, and he was joking about this. He says, I haven't seen it myself. He says, there's a I have to go see it to believe it. If I do see it, Real Talkers, I promise I'll tweet the photo out. I'll post it on my Instagram too. He says that there's a residential tower in Edmonton, and he says on the penthouse.
No.
He says there's a huge conservative sign on the penthouse, and then he says there's an NDP sign like in like the first 5 floors.
Of course.
And I was just like, that's amazing. You need to get the liberal sign, like you're right in the mushy middle there.
Can we please get your friend to take a nice HD photo on his camera? Because
we should turn that into
if there was ever a metaphor that we could just show visually.
So funny. So funny. Ms. Katie says, I was a door knocker last weekend. Good for you. Says some people are just rude for sure. But most are cool. Says one guy was so polite. He said he wasn't going to vote for our candidate, but said good for us for getting out there. How's that for a positive attitude?
Now get out there and make something of yourself, kids.
That is definitely not what the guy on my street said. In the video, it's a real trip when you see your street shown on a video that's going somewhat viral online. It's like, oh geez, right? 80s Fanify says they've only even seen 2 lawn signs in their whole riding. One conservative, one liberal. Says we're a semi-rural riding, so that caught my eye. That's another thing worth pointing out. I think for a lot of people, I don't mean to like exacerbate it or shine attention on it, but I think for a lot of people, you kind of take a risk putting up certain lawn signs in certain ridings, right? People get very get very touchy, and it's not always just like stealing the sign.
No.
For a lot of people, it's like there's vandalism that comes along with 100%. It. There's, sort of assaults on your reputation in the community, and that could go in a number of different directions. We always want to hear these stories. You share these stories with us to talk at RyanJesperson.com. It gives us some better insight into what's happening around us. I want to get into a few things, including a follow-up on Buttongate, an interesting comment. This is honestly
this is another
my favorite
signs you can wear on your suit.
It's like one of my favorite stories in a long time. Plus, Donald Trump with more commentary on deporting Americans to El Salvador, and
his test on his large brain.
I want to get into his comments on the cognitive test. By the way, and I will approach this with bipartisan spirit because he says, Donald Trump says he asked if Joe Biden took the cognitive test, and the physician said no. If Joe Biden was not required to take the cognitive test,
I thought you are required.
America is broken. I don't know what was going on there, but I digress. Before we do it, our friends at Tourism Jasper once a week give us an opportunity to remind you of the incredible things that are happening in this crown jewel of the Canadian Rockies. It's MyJasper Memories, presented by our friends at Tourism Jasper, and we want to let you know right now of a couple of things that are happening. If you're looking to make some memories with your family or with your dear friends, it's not too late to get out there this weekend. The Jasper SkyTram is wide open. It's been open for a couple of weeks now. I know getting up to the mountaintop is obviously a special experience for everybody, but for some folks, there may be time constraints, there may be mobility challenges, there may be a million reasons why you can't go ahead and hike on up. But the Jasper SkyTram makes it so much easier to gain a jaw-dropping bird's eye view of Jasper National Park from above the tree line. And John, you would love this. It's dog-friendly. How great is that? So bring your beloved four-legged furry family member along with you. This is a really neat opportunity this time of year. You've still got some snow cap up there. You can rent snowshoes to explore the summit. This is a great activity for the entire family. And by the way, the soup at the cafe at the top is very underrated.
I thought you were going to talk about the soup that develops at the bottom. Have you ever worn snowshoes and you get that puddle? I was like, what are you?
I mean, there's that too. But much like
the foot soup?
Much like many dogs, I am very food obsessed. And so I know that if you're looking for, I'm just giving you reason after reason after reason to get up there on the Jasper SkyTram. Plus, you're showing it. I mean, I know a lot of people listen on the podcast, but you're showing it. This is where you can sit.
Beautiful.
They've got this wonderful little cafe. There's like a tiny little bookstore and a really cool. I just absolutely love it up there. If mobility is not necessarily a challenge, me and my buddy Lozzie used to do this. We would hike up, and then we would take the SkyTram down. So it's a nice scramble. I think I did it in about 20 minutes. No, definitely not. But it's like a nice hour and a half at a decent pace. And then you can just ride the SkyTram down with the new friends you've met up at the summit. It is the best way to spend like a mid-morning into the early afternoon. Highly recommend it. And then they've also got their Stay and Soar package right now. This May, you can book a multi-night stay at Miette Mountain Cabins, at Marmot Lodge, or at the Forest Park Hotel, and get this, receive a free Jasper SkyTram voucher for 2, which is valid within 7 days of your visit. So you can soak in the panoramic views from the top of Whistler's Mountain, add some high alpine wonder to your escape. This offer does end May 27th. So you're going to want to make that booking now. That's the Stay and Soar package featuring the beautiful Miette Mountain Cabins, Marmot Lodge, or Forest Park Hotel. Don't forget, when you're posting photos or video of your Jasper memories, hashtag MyJasper and Real Talk RJ. We'd love to show off your family's memories right here on a future episode of MyJasper Memories, presented by our friends at Tourism Jasper. Tony says, I'm done with the snow, you guys. I need sun and heat. Tony, the sun will be shining on your face out there in Jasper. I know they had a beautiful weekend.
6-7 weeks of it here in Alberta.
We're gonna be talking about golf out there soon too, which is really exciting. Hey, did you see what Paige Spiranac? She's I think she's the most followed on social media, the most followed golf personality in the world easily. Paige Spiranac, but she posted this just the other day. Quick diversion. As we're talking about golf, I thought I'd mention this. I like this, what she put out there. She says, hot take, I know. She says, but I wish all sporting events banned phones, just like the Masters does. Says it was so special to see everybody enjoying the moment and being present. And I've heard more and more people talking about that. At the Masters, your phone basically goes into a locker. I don't know how they logistically do it, but nobody is allowed to have their phones at the Masters. And I thought, wouldn't that be cool? You look these days and
we have different opinions on this.
Do we? Yeah. I understand someone's going to say, well, I got to contact a babysitter, or I have to
Hey, that's not my voice.
But I do think, if we look at, and I'm as guilty as anybody is, man. But people walking through crosswalks, staring at their phones, people in waiting rooms, wherever they are, people at airports, people at the gym, it's just everyone's and I'm one of you. I'm ripping myself more than anybody. But I just think what Augusta National has done by banning phones, it did translate into everybody being so present and in the moment. And I feel like if we're going to truly be present these days, if we're truly going to be in the moment, it happens only one of two ways. And that's either someone takes your phone away or your battery dies.
Yeah. I went to a concert. I forget which one it was. Anyways, 2 years ago. And I saw people in front of me with cameras, and they were taking away phones. I said to the security guard, because we're all putting our cameras into little lockers, and I'm kissing mine goodbye, saying, I'll see you soon, honey. I'm sorry I have to do this to you. Be okay. I said, they've got cameras, though. And they're like, yeah, you can bring a camera, just no phones. I said, what? Is it you can't journal next? No journals? I just don't get why people are... Okay, I do. You don't want everyone holding phones in pictures, probably. But for me, my phone is a journal. I write in it. I take pictures in it. I communicate with my family, my friends. It's my link to the world. I have this really, I'm adverse to people.
You sound like an addict is what you sound like.
No, but if I go to a concert, I want to take a video. I want to take some pictures. I might write down a few things I hear the DJ or somebody do because that's related to my work. I might write down something about the production that I want to remember later because that's related to our work. And I just feel I don't know. I don't like the whole taking away phones thing, unless it's going to be. The one reason I will say is they're probably doing it because you don't want someone's phone going off when they're teeing off, right?
I don't know I don't know the reasoning.
I think it's
just
mostly
because
sound, right?
There's no, I mean, Augusta, obviously one of the sort of the most sacred grounds of golf. I mean, right up there with St. Andrews and other, I mean, great courses, great communities. Obviously nobody normal gets to be a part of that community.
but we were
it's still a
watching,
part
remember
of
the
it.
car alarm?
But there, I couldn't
And
believe
how
that,
distracting it was. You said.
I think that was on 10, whatever tee box that was. And it was wild. There was a car alarm. I'm imagining from a sponsor vehicle or something.
You said. They're
but
probably pissed.
I said they're super pissed at the Masters that a car alarm is going off when this guy's trying to tee off, because that does not, like, you think of how Augusta is even called, like I'm talking Jim Nance and how he calls it, like Amen Corner, and I don't need to try to do my impression of it, but it's even commentated differently than any other golf tournament because it's the Masters. It has different music, it has different vibes, it has a different culture around it. But I know even closer to here at home, there's a lot of private golf clubs that, like, you don't wear a hat in the club. You don't have your phone. You cannot take a phone call on the patio. Like, they do have those rules. And
sure.
For me, I know for some people you're going to roll your eyes right now. Some of you are skipping past this part in the show because you can't stand, like, the exclusivity of it, or you don't like kind of what it stands for. But I just think more opportunities to be away from our phones. I've shared this before. My son's, or at least Wyatt, coming up on his 10th birthday, is old enough now to call me on it and to say, Dad, put down your phone and pay attention to me.
Sure.
And if your child says that to you one time, you've been admonished
It
enough.
hits you, eh?
Well, I feel shame. I feel shame.
But here's the thing. If you're with a few family members and it's family time, I agree. But man, when you're with tons of people and it's one of the most incredible events of golf history, whether it's a concert, whatever you're doing, I want to be laying on my deathbed looking at these videos. But I get
You're not going to be on your deathbed
You
looking
know what
at
I
videos
mean,
from
though.
a concert.
But I save everything. I have all my photos go back in my cloud. Like, I go back, I'm like, oh my gosh, look at this. I'll send them to my friends, whatever. But like, one time I do think you should put your phone down is when you're alone, when you're at home. Like, turn your brain off, stretch, do some therapy online, like turn on a TV show, get your mind off the world, don't scroll. But when you're with tons of people, I just don't see the whole thing about, even on a plane, it's just airplane mode. And even then it's like the honor system. They're not coming around and like telling you to shut your phone off. It just seems weird when you're at a huge public event that this is the rule sometimes. And that's just my opinion. Some people, I get what you're saying. You get off your phone, experience, kumbaya, hold hands. I do that as well. I'm not like holding my phone the entire concert, the entire event, but I do want to get those moments.
Yeah, fair enough.
We're never going to agree
way,
on this.
That's okay. And you know that there's a certain amount of like BS to what I'm talking about, because I was at a concert. Was it John Mulaney? Not a concert, but a stand-up performance. I don't want to throw Mulaney under the bus. Who was it? It doesn't matter who it was. Something within the last couple of years. Same deal. Phones go into the bag at the arena, and you can't access. Now, if you need to, you can go request your phone. You can go to an area where you can use it and whatever, but no one's going to do it. And I was bitching and complaining the whole entire time. But then I realized it's because I'm like programmed, because I have an addiction to that. Because it's like all I do. And if people are honest about this, maybe you do the same thing. I go check my Instagram, and then I go check my Twitter, and then I go check my Facebook, and then I go check my Instagram again. What are you doing? I'm checking my email on a Sunday afternoon. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? I'm checking hockey scores when my team's already out of the hockey playoffs. Like, why do I care about that?
And addiction is one thing, but I also know people with anxiety who, like, man, when I'm in a public space, sometimes I just can't deal, and my phone is like my outlet to just look down for a minute, take a breath. Yeah. I'm not even looking at anything really. I'm inside my own head, taking a breath, counting down from 10, thinking about where in the venue I'm going to go next, or how I'm going to deal with this situation, because I don't like being out in public or whatever. But yeah, so, and the other thing is obviously emergencies. That's the one thing you brought up that everyone does. But like, I was at the Masters, but you know, my wife had twins and my grandma died, and I had no way to find out.
I heard about this hilarious thing that was going on at the Masters.
My house was on fire.
There was a guy.
Didn't get the notification.
There was a guy going around to some of the top sports commentators, like people with like the millions of followers on social, and this guy was going around saying to people at the Masters, "Did you hear about the huge NFL trade?" Just bullshitting. And so all these guys are getting all worked up. Like, what's happening? Shout out in the live chat to Sean, by the way. One more note on Jasper. Sean says his wife and kid are heading up to Marmot Basin Friday morning. Says Thursday. Sean, you guys are taking off early. Way to go. Says conditions are amazing. There's no ice and 11 centimeters of fresh stuff this week. I think they've got like over 100 centimeters of fresh in like the last couple of weeks. It's unbelievable spring for Marmot. They're wide open. I saw until May 4th, so you can check that out online. Kind of an interesting comment. We wanted to get to this. Laura Kurimaki is a political strategist and a policy advisor, and she had an interesting comment doing media yesterday talking about Buttongate. If you're not familiar with this story, some of you, and we'll get to your comments, some of you say that this is an absolute nothing burger. This is nothing to see here. Why are we even talking about it? Others of you think that heads should absolutely roll after Carney campaign.
Read some of these.
Staffers dropped off. Here's the thing is like something can be hilarious and not funny at all at the same time.
Exactly.
And this is a classic example.
Over the line, but hilarious.
Over the line, like a hilarious idea, but put into practice very foolish. And so the Liberal campaign, the Carney campaign, has all these buttons made up, like Make Canada Great Again, Stop the Steal, Free Alberta, Lock Justin Up. A vote for Carney is a vote for Wexit, like Alberta leaving. Crowd size matters, like all these buttons. And they went into the Manning conference. What's it called now? The Canada True Strong Free Network. They
Connection.
Like, whatever it is. They took like a cool name and then they made it this big long name. But it used to be known as the Manning Conference, where a bunch of conservatives go and once a year, and it's kind of a networking thing and obviously a lot of fun if that's your thing. And so they kind of go in there and start like distributing these buttons out, like me dropping off Real Talk matchbooks everywhere I go. If you ever see Real Talk wooden matches, let us know. And so they were getting away with it, or they had gotten away with it. And ultimately their plan, of course, you want to have a bunch of conservatives wearing these like Lock Justin Up buttons, and then, journalists will photograph that, and then they will portray the conservative, conference as basically MAGA North, Maple MAGA, Trump, lock her up, Hillary's emails, right? Like you kind of get the idea, you get the strategy. But one of the individuals responsible for this, allegedly, I don't know if they were hammered or not, but they were at a watering hole in Ottawa, did not recognize that a journalist was sitting in proximity to them, close proximity.
They're everywhere.
And they were laughing and talking about what they had done. And the journalist, to their credit, walked up and said, I am going to report on this, FYI.
Can I get a quote?
Well, they did ask for it.
But like,
and
you
then
should
the
be
person was,
smarter.
and then the person was like, reportedly, the person was like, I didn't say that. I didn't do that. And they were like, no, we are running with the story and you did do it. So they get nailed.
You should just know that everyone knows a blogger. Everyone knows a reporter. Everyone knows someone connected to a podcast. Just be careful when you're out for beers.
The number one rule of Button Club is there is no Button Club. So Laura Kurimaki's talking about this. We're just looking for perspective. No, it's not the biggest story of the election, but it sure is an interesting one. And here's what Laura had to say about it.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous and disgusting. This is the sort of thing that if conservative operatives were accused of doing, it would be absolutely egregious. The media would be talking about it nonstop. The Liberal campaign trying to blame junior staff is laughable. There is no way that junior staff are going out in the middle of the election and doing something like this, which is unsanctioned, which is in the middle of downtown Ottawa. So I just find it a bit rich to be blaming junior staff when clearly they were told to go and do this from someone very senior.
So that's conservative strategist Laura Kurimaki.
Yeah, I had the night to think on it, and I kind of said the same thing yesterday. I said, I said it was probably an idea, but it sounds like a junior staffer idea for sure, someone lower or less mature. But there's no way. I also included the caveat yesterday that there's no way they didn't ask someone above them before they went to the print shop, before they got the bags full, before they checked into the hotel and crossed the street. Somebody above. Do I think Mark Carney knew? No. I think he's a smart guy. He would have been like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Yeah. But I think someone higher definitely knew and definitely okayed this, and that Laura is right. But I also agree with you, like, the easiest way would have been just fire these staffers. How are they not fired, Ryan?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I was wondering about, and I do think that it's a so-called fireable offense. I don't think that that it's possible that 2 junior staffers cooked this all up and executed on their own.
No, and if you fire them, maybe they blow the lid off.
Well, but if you fire, and that's exactly it.
Hey, actually, my
right
superior told me.
So we asked, and I post, you guys can obviously follow Real Talk on TikTok, Instagram, and on X. Me personally on Facebook, I threw it out there on my personal profile. Feel free to follow along. And I just asked, is this a nothing burger or should heads roll? And Joel says heads should roll. Says the Liberals are a corrupt bunch of psychopaths that care nothing about democracy. John says the Conservatives knew something was wrong when it wasn't the Soldiers of Odin and Wilberforce Project buttons. They normally have the Wilberforce Project, of course, the anti-abortion crew that has been inserting itself into elections. Kelly says, I wouldn't fire them. I wouldn't fire these staffers, but I would keep them around and make them do the hard, thankless work so I could keep an eye on them. Interesting. Sue says we need to stop talking about this ridiculous stuff. How about the real issues we need to address in our country? Peter says this is a non-issue. Both sides have ding-dongs. I think Peter's probably right about that. Leanna says, I think the destruction of signs across the country is a bigger deal, but nobody talks about that. I think people do talk about it, but Leanna does make a point. Destroying lawn signs, demolishing signs, moving signs on or off of people's lawns, says that should be the message. What kind of democracy do we live in when people feel it's fine to destroy signs and spray paint hateful symbols or messages? We should be better than that.
Leave the signs alone.
Wendy says this is totally a non-issue. We need to be talking about politicians who have said they will take away constitutional rights because they can. Far more dangerous. I think Wendy is probably referencing Pierre Poilievre, Section 33 of the Charter, saying that he will invoke the notwithstanding clause to keep mass murderers behind bars for life, which for the most part they are. We talked about that relatively at length in our most recent episode, and you can check that out. Dustin says it's a non-issue. Liz says, I don't care that people planted the buttons, but I do care that people took them. That's kind of interesting. And Rick says, you guys, isn't it quaint that this is a scandal in Canada?
I love how Vicky yesterday referred to it as probably the cutest scandal name we've ever had.
Buttongate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But leave the signs alone. Unless maybe like stuff like this, Ryan, is kind of over the edge. You see the one on the screen?
What is this? Tell people on the podcast.
It's a liberal lawn sign. It says, just ignore the last 10 years, bro. Elect us again.
Did people actually print these and put them up?
This looks pretty like AI, or this looks Photoshopped. This
looks
doesn't look real to
Photoshopped.
me. Yeah.
Aren't you surprised
But
that,
this is the
more
stuff
people
you're seeing online,
don't do their own custom lawn signs?
100%. That's what I thought with okay, what did we talk about right after Buttongate yesterday? We said, hey, we need to get around to getting our own buttons. And then we said, hey, we should have some of those funny buttons made and just wear them on the show. But not like, again, not because we support the buttons, but I just think, I think whoever did this, maybe they're a comedian, you know? It's like a stand-up comedy routine. Like, it's uncomfortable, but you can't help but giggle. There's no one who looked at this story and didn't say two things. Wow, this is over the line.
Yeah.
And secondly, hee.
Super Chat Ken says we have Buttongate in Canada and people are being disappeared in the U.S. He says, and that is why I love being a Canadian. Cam in a pizzeria says the pins were fine until the Conservatives found out it wasn't them, which is also kind of a funny point. Let us know what you think about this.
Speaking we're doing a poll.
What are people saying?
Should the Buttongate staffers...
Where is this on Spotify?
We're doing a YouTube poll right now.
Okay.
If you're in the chat for all our chatters, 200 people right now. Should the staffers be fired from Buttongate? Yes, 40%. No, 40%. 20%. I love buttons.
20% just want buttons. We should maybe do some Real Talk buttons. That could be our next merch drop. I like that idea.
Should we talk about Trump's brain?
Yeah, well, before we talk about the brain, I think that probably his interview with Fox talking about deporting Americans, like on the more serious side, we'll talk about his cognitive test, which is just not serious. That's just us putting a smile on your face on a Wednesday. But this obviously very serious as Trump's hot mic moment sort of dominated headlines south of the border, talking about his plans for so-called homegrown Americans, convicts, essentially, the dangerous criminals that Trump has promised to expel from America. He sees El Salvador as a potential solution, and he elaborated on that in an interview with Fox News.
Could we use it for violent criminals, our own violent criminals?
I call them homegrown criminals.
Yes.
I mean, the
homegrowns.
The ones that grew up and something went wrong and they hit people over the head with a baseball bat. We have, and push people into subways just before the train gets there, like you see sometimes. We are looking into it and we want to do it. I would love to do that.
I would love to do that.
Yeah, and this is you can't. This is the one thing about Trump I can't fault. He's great at like the 180. So he was caught on a hot mic saying something. Yeah. Now he's owning it fucking 100%. And people are like, hell yeah. Already on X this morning, I woke up to hashtag, deport the homegrowns and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
So he's good at that.
Yeah. So obviously, folks are talking about due process for obvious reasons. And there are a lot of implications to this, but that's one that we'll kind of keep an eye on for sure. To say the least. I mean, I know that people will invoke like Guantanamo Bay, which is not a direct line, and I'm not drawing a direct comparison. But for the most part, Americans are being forced to grapple with something very different here. And when you start talking about, when the president, who I would say is no fool, I know people have differing opinions on that, but Donald Trump didn't get to where he was by being an idiot. But when he invokes those sort of stories that everybody understands. You don't remember the name, you don't remember the date, unless it was your family member, but you do remember hearing about the person that was pushed in front of the subway on the tracks.
And it's
horrifying. You do remember hearing about the home invasion. Yeah. You do remember hearing about the mass murderer. Or in Canada, like Poilievre's tapping into, with his comments on Section 33 of the Charter, the notwithstanding clause. People do remember hearing that, the guy that, the Brinks truck driver or the armored truck driver in Edmonton that shot his colleagues in the back of the head and robbed them and ran to the United States, that guy's up for parole right now. Canadians are aware of that. Now, whether or not people know the actual details, like how many times has a mass murderer in Canada actually been granted parole and released, the times are very few, but that's not what a politician is concerned about.
No.
Right? Politicians are concerned about creating this awareness in your brain that under current legislation or under this current government, this could happen or this is happening, and we won't allow it to happen. And I think that's what Poilievre's tapping into. And we commented on it yesterday at length. You can check out that episode. I know a lot of people feel like, Poilievre becoming the first prime minister, he says he would be the first prime minister to not his words, but to circumvent the charter, to invoke that notwithstanding clause. Some people are saying like that's lawlessness. That's a very slippery slope. That's a bad precedent for a prime minister. And other people are sitting there going, are you siding with the mass murderers? Like, is that who you're concerned about in this situation? Like, why wouldn't you be more concerned about protecting the general public? Nobody's really talked in meaningful fashion or to depth on addressing violent crime in Canada. It is a top concern for many people. I want to actually not just take something back I said yesterday, but I want to elaborate on it. I said, especially if you're living in the urban centers, and I inadvertently almost disrespected rural folks across the country, that for them, the increase in violent crimes, in B&Es, in tension in their neighborhoods has reached an untenable point. And you talk to people in rural areas, and a lot of times where RCMP response, and this is not a shot at the cops, but RCMP response at best is 45 minutes, at worst is like tomorrow. And for a lot of people, they want political leadership that will promise to crack down on that type of stuff.
You said it yesterday. Like this, from Poilievre and Trump's brain, is very effective. What's going on right now? Trump promised to lower crime. Poilievre is promising the same. How do you do that? Man, I think a big deterrent is, changing charter rights and forcing deportations. I mean, I'd be scared as hell living in the States to commit a crime if I knew I was going to a foreign prison where God knows what's going to happen to me. The debate is whether it's right, whether it's moral. It's all fun and games till it's one of your family members who may be presumed innocent that is off the grid and living in El Salvador.
Grateful to have Gilles watching us in our live chat powered by Park Power. He says Trump deporting American citizens is his own personal use of essentially the Canada's notwithstanding clause, he said, which is something that's being discussed in our election as well. Interesting parallel there from Jill. Jill, we asked Vicky Mochama in our conversation yesterday whether or not she thinks that the comparisons, whether Poilievre takes a risk by talking about invoking the notwithstanding clause at the same time that Trump's talking about El Salvador and deporting homegrowns. or if we're searching too hard for that parallel there, and maybe you'll be interested in her response. You can check that episode out. And, of course, subscribe to Vicky's podcast, Party All the Time, which we're very proud to be working on. Johnny's doing a hell of a job producing
show.
it.
Love it.
New episode out. There will be a new one out coming up on Friday, right? On Good Friday, they'll have a new episode dropping.
Yeah, and she's already explored all the themes. I like how she does them in, like, order too. Like, she literally expanded my understanding of, like, mortgages and the rates across Canada. And then last show, climate change, which I'm wondering if this comes up in the debates tonight, Ryan, because it's like, it's way in the back seat.
The notwithstanding clause?
No, the climate change at
climate
all
change.
is
Right,
just
right.
not being talked about. Who will bring it up first and who will counter first on it, right? So
yeah, well, like if you're hitting, I mean, it's going to be difficult.
if Carney brings it up, Poilievre jumps on it.
I will pay general attention to the French language debates tonight. I always like to challenge myself. I'm the son of my mom was a French teacher, So
really?
I
didn't know that.
Yeah, so I mean, my mom speaks beautiful French, and I've always wondered. I guess maybe I'll ask her this weekend over Easter dinner how she feels about the fact that none of her children are as proficient en français as she is. But I do like to watch French, listen to French, I really like to try to understand. It's a beautiful language, but I will watch it differently than I would watch the English debates. But I'll be curious to see kind of where they hit them. There will obviously be more issues centering around Quebec's relationship in Canada, etc., for obvious reasons. And then the English language debate, which goes on the 17th, tomorrow, the next day, we'll be talking. Ooh. And of course, we'll be gathering with our Real Talk Patreon supporters at a private VIP debate night viewing party. That's our way of saying thank you to those of you that support us on Patreon. We're really looking forward to that.
Now, there will be food, but I'll allow debate at this party.
You will.
During
I think so.
dinner.
I'd love to see it. Well, I know for a fact I've seen some of the RSVPs. There's going to be people from across the political spectrum there because that's our audience.
I might ghost. Early.
Tracy says, just don't ask your mom at the dinner table. I promise I won't.
Exactly what I just brought up.
Yeah, I promise I won't. Donald Trump also talking about, and this is just for pure entertainment, talking about the cognitive exam that he took. He just had his annual physical, and I just honestly, let me just say this and teeing this up. This is just to make you laugh as we sign off for the day. I honestly thought that this was an AI-generated video when I first saw it.
Oh, really?
I fact-checked it, and then I fact-checked it again because I just thought, have you seen the AI video of Rory McIlroy talking about the Masters?
Yeah, I can always tell them.
It's AI-generated,
ones,
and he's talking about how, the Irish perform better drunk, and when he bogeyed on, was it 15, they took a swig of Jameson's, and obviously it's funny. It's AI-generated.
The lips and hands give it away.
But this one, no, this is real for your pure entertainment. Here's the President of the United States.
Very low IQ president. And by the way, I took my cognitive exam as part of my physical exam, and I got the highest mark, and one of the doctors said, "Sir, I've never seen anybody get that kind of, that was the highest mark." I hope you're happy with that, although they haven't been bugging me too much to take a cognitive, but I did do my physical and it was released. I hope you're all happy with it. I notice there's no question, so probably you are. But the cognitive, they said to me, "Sir, would you like to take a cognitive test?" I said, "Did Biden take one?" "No." "Did anybody take one?" "No, not too many people took them." I said, what about Obama? Did he take one?" "No, he didn't take one either." I said, "Let me be the only one to take one." But I've actually taken them 3 times already. I like taking them because they're not too tough for me to take.
Okay.
My cognitive test. I was at the doctor. He took a cognitive test. And then he said, pull down your pants. I'll do another cognitive test. And I showed him my penis. He says it's the biggest penis he's ever seen. It's the most beautiful penis he'd ever seen. The largest in Canada and the United States. And
I appreciate that he says he achieved the highest mark in the cognitive test. And there have been people kind of clowning around.
Is there a
with
ceiling?
This. Well, people are just saying people are like my dad has dementia or my mom has Alzheimer's, and so they use this cognitive test as a sort of a gauge of where they're at to sort of figure out where they're at with their cognitive abilities. And they'll say it shows an elephant, and they will say, "What animal is this?" And you say it's an elephant. They're like, there's no way to have the highest marks.
Is it like the ink? Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's not. What's that? The Rorschach test?
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
this is just.
It's always a butterfly.
No, this is just. So the highest mark. The physical, interesting as well. I'm not sure if you saw this out of West Palm Beach, Florida. Trump's doctor, says the oldest man elected. And first of all, let me say this. I'm not going to start poking fun at the results of other people's annual physicals, because if I had to have my annual physical released for public consumption, it would be an absolute nightmare. It would be a disaster. But it comes with the territory of being president of the United States. So the president's doctor says the oldest man elected U.S. president is fully fit. This is good news. To serve as commander-in-chief, 78 years old, and he's lost 9 kilos. So he's lost more than 20 pounds than his last checkup as president in 2020. Look at that, John.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, so they talk about his BMI. I don't want to focus too much on that. I think that's kind of a bullshit thing to laugh about. However, this is what I love. They do say, the doctor says he is concerned about exposure to the sun. This is out of the annual physical, the official annual for the president of the United States. This is a quote. They're concerned about his exposure to the sun, as the president's days are, quote, filled with multiple meetings, public appearances, media availabilities, and frequent victories in golf events.
I like how he said victories and didn't say this guy fucking golfs more than he works, which is basically, but like when your doctors say, like, that quote, was he like, hey, I'm going to say this? And they're like, okay, we'll change it to frequent victories.
Yeah, don't say golfs all the time. Put frequent victories.
But this is easy. Just switch out the self-tanner, or at least use one with SPF, like, 50, 60, 80, Trump. That's all you got to do. He does look like his teeth, because he's obviously got is it dentures or whatever? Like, his teeth look so white lately
whites.
because he is so tanned from being out golfing so much. Right?
Yeah, I can never talk about pearly white teeth now without thinking of Blippi. Only the parents or the grandparents.
Which Blippi?
Will know
That's
this.
the controversy right now.
Yeah, there are. Is there? Yeah,
there's like 3 now, and parents are like, "This is not hashtag not my Blippi online." It's crazy. But show that picture again from the article.
The toothbrushing song.
The one of him golfing.
Yeah. What
Don't his teeth look like? And again, appearance. We're not here to mock people, but we're at the end of the show.
No, I think his teeth look great.
But they're about to come out, are they not?
I don't know. I would say this.
Come out a bit then.
If I can swing a golf club at 78, if I can swing a club at 78, like he can, then I'll be happy.
And eat cheeseburgers and drink Diet Coke all day. That's
Shauna says, guys, the cognitive test is used when there is need for an assessment. Like, no wonder Barack Obama didn't take a cognitive test. The guy was like 45 years old. He was like 50 years old.
But who decides in the White House?
But if it is true that Joe Biden didn't take one, I'm questioning the whole process.
Why aren't we having cognitive tests every year for anyone over the age of 75 who's a president?
Yeah.
Whether they're a man, woman, in shape, out of shape, why is this a problem? And why isn't it public? Like, I mean, don't tell us about the inner workings of their body, but can they make rational decisions day to day?
Does the public deserve to know how much their political leader weighs?
I think we can gauge that already with AI and no, seriously, we can look at someone, height, weight, use AI technology, use cameras. I don't think we need to know the exact, like what, I'm 5 pounds lighter this week. Great. How does this affect the country?
Yeah.
I think I don't like the whole body shaming of anyone, including Donald Trump, but
I agree. Yeah. Let us know what you think. Talk at RyanJesperson.com right now. This is a special gift. This is an opportunity for anybody right now that's looking for work. We have something for you. If you're a self-starter, if you're a great team player, if you have any experience, if you're a journey person, you got your ticket, or you're an apprentice, if you've worked in sales, if you're an engineer, it's kind of sick and tired of all the folks at your firm that just don't appreciate the work you're doing. Check out Kuby.ca, Kuby.ca. You can check out their careers link. Team Kuby, Johnny, I was checking out on their Instagram. They had a post yesterday. Follow them at Kuby Energy. They are, as you would expect, up on roofs now. Installation season is open, and Kuby is a fast-growing, forward-thinking team dedicated to transforming Canada's energy landscape. Job postings at Kuby.ca. Follow the solar link and then click on careers, and you can see all the opportunities. Kelowna, Kamloops, Lethbridge, Calgary, Edmonton. A ton of opportunities. You can apply today. You can also get a free solar quote by following the link, top right corner of their website at Kuby.ca. And a big shout out to our friends at Athabasca University. We're looking forward to this on the 22nd of April. It's Earth Day. Our gift to you, we're going to stop talking federal election just for a little bit. about a week out. On the 22nd of April, we're going to have some AU experts talking to us about some of the amazing research, the projects that are happening out of Canada's Open University in the context of, saving the planet. You can learn more about Athabasca University on their website, including how they work, the programs and courses, all of them essentially designed by you. You set the course based on your availability, your schedule, what you envision your course road looking like. That's why tens of thousands of Canadians have looked to Athabasca University for their post-secondary journey, including the Athabasca MBA. If you're looking to level up, maybe throw your hat in the ring for the next big promotion at work, the Athabasca U MBA. You can learn more today at athabascau.ca.
All right, I'm throwing my hat in the ring. Who's above me? Who do I got to take out here at Real Talk?
Look around.
Wait, it's you. You're
that
the guy
there. You saw my company-wide released annual physical, and you realize you just got to lie in wait, pal.
This guy
this guy's
not
gonna
as
go,
healthy as
this
he's
guy's
telling
gonna
his
go
listeners.
anytime. This guy's going to go any day. All right, as we wrap this tomfoolery for now, we thank you. A shout-out to Reed Clark, our first ever real VIP YouTube channel member. You learn more about the benefits of membership on our YouTube channel. And, of course, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate you all. Coming up on our next episode, we'll lead out of the gates with the leader of the PPC, Max Bernier. And then we'll get our bipartisan Real Talk Roundtable to break it down. Shannon Phillips, Ken Bosencool, plus an early edition of the Flamethrower. We hope you'll join us.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer Josh Dunford. Technical producer John Hicks. General manager Katie Cook-Chivers. Account coordinator Lawrence Derlego. Human resources Lena Shepard. Website design Mike Johnston. Voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.